This is why we shouldn't do meetings on Monday afternoons.
No, I had the wrong Zoom meeting open. Marcy and I were in a completely different link, and I'm like, nobody's in the waiting room. Leanne's not even here.
Oh no. Well, I thought it was
Right,
a little
me?
odd that it hadn't started, like you hadn't started it yet.
Yeah,
And I
we've
thought,
been
well,
here for 15 minutes.
maybe they just have another, meeting like right up against it. So
Yeah.
oh.
No, we've been sitting there chit-chatting, like waiting. I'm like, where the heck is everybody? But all right, there's
Oh,
3
good.
people in the waiting room. I'll let them in. Monday. Marcy, do you have access to the participant, like waiting room as well?
Yeah. I can let them in.
Okay, so if I get going and somebody pops in, thank you.
Leanna, Nicole, could you tell me, should I be at this meeting? We've already done the grant.
Right, yes. No, that's a good question, Kathy. Yes, I mean, I do think it'll be helpful. It's a whole series, right? So you'll have access to all of the sessions, and we are recording them as well. But yes, it's not specific to the grant.
I didn't know if today was more about the grant application than.
So that's a good point. And we'll chat about that too, because folks that are recipients of the RFA grant funding don't have to do the application. Your application for the grant is your application for your expansion. So you're right. It could be confusing for those folks. And I have that down to talk about as well. So it's up to you. I'm more than happy
I'll
to
hang out for a little while, and then if it feels like I don't need to be here, no.
I understand. I won't be offended.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
And I'm just going to say on the front end that I, unfortunately, when we scheduled these, already had a conflict at 4 o'clock. So I'm going to be on for the first half an hour, and then you'll see me depart. But Nicole and Marcy will be available.
Yeah. Okay, so I do have a screen to share as well. So I'm just going to get that up real quick. Okay. And I'm already recording. Perfect. Alrighty. So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I know 3:30 can be, sometimes it's a great time, sometimes it's a tricky time. So I really appreciate everybody getting it on their schedules and being able to join us. So if I haven't already met you, I'm Nicole Medore. I'm the early childhood specialist here at the Department of Education. And I actually have some other colleagues here with me as well. Leanne, did you want to say hello real quick?
Sure thing, Nicole. Hey, everybody. I'm Leanne Larson. I coordinate the early learning team in the Department of Education, and that's where our public pre-K program is based.
And I think Marcy's here. Well, I know Marcy's here.
Yeah, I am. Hi, everybody. I'm Marcy Whitcomb. I'm the early childhood monitor. I sit on the early learning team with Nicole and Leanne, and I do technical assistance and support observations and whatever else comes up for our public pre-K programs around the state.
And Nina Cunningham is our Head Start State Collaboration Director. She's on our team at the department as well. Unfortunately, she's very much under the weather today, so she's opting to rest, much needed. So she will join us, I'm sure, for another session that's scheduled later. And then Jane is here as well. Jane, did you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jane, and I'm the contract grant specialist for the pre-K expansion grant. So nice to meet everyone. And I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Jane. Need to get your picture. Okay, so some quick housekeeping details. As a result of your registration for this series in your acceptance or welcome email that you got with the link, there was a document embedded in that, and it's just a Google Doc. And this is another quick link that folks could utilize to get there. I think Marcy's given me some help in putting it in the chat box as well. And so we have access to that on our end. So we'll add to it as we move on through the series. There's different links to resources that will help you out as you plan your new or expanded pre-K program. So if you don't have access to that, let us know and we'll see how we can sort of remedy that for you, but it should be there. It's nothing dressy or fancy or visually appealing. It's literally a list of our dates and our topics and then links that coordinate to each topic. And as far as today and the rest of the series, our agenda will review the topics that are highlighted for each session. And then we'll identify any documents or resources that exist for that, where they might be located, and also they'll be on that other document. Any important dates that come up that folks need to be aware of, we'll discuss. And then we want to make sure too that there's time at the end for any open discussion or questions. So I really don't want to overthink this series. I don't want it to be all sit and get. Please speak up, unmute, ask questions, use the chat box. It's really just meant to guide you through this and help you to make it as seamless and smooth as possible. So if it ever feels like it's not doing that, then please let us know. So for today's topics, we sort of started way back at the beginning with the public pre-K new and expanded application, and then also the public pre-K guidebook. And I know that many of you have probably seen these before and have a loving relationship with both of them. So just bear with me as I sort of run through some of the bigger pieces for folks that are new to it. So when it comes to the pre-K new and expanded application, we try to break it down to the who, where, when, why, and how of it all. So when we talk about the who must complete it, it's as easy as any SAU, any school district that's adding pre-K seats to your local district. So these might be a brand new program, or it might be that you're expanding your program to more students who want to attend. So if that's true for you, then we would hope that or expect an application to come in. Now, the caveat to that, I was saying to Kathy as folks were entering, is that for next school year, we do have a number of districts who are recipients of federal funding through the RFA process. You likely know who you are if you're here today. You do not have to do the application. So that's waived for you because your RFA grant application covered everything we would need to know. If anything was missing or we had any questions, we've already followed up with you about that. So those folks do not have to do the application. Anybody else that's expecting to start new or expand in lieu of that federal funding, you're just doing it through your local state budget, then we would expect that application to come through. So let me keep going through the rest of these where, when, why. Yes.
Nicole, just also to clarify, we know that there are some SAUs who are using other sources of federal funding, specifically the ESSER funds. So that is different than the pre-K expansion grant. So if you are an SAU that is starting or expanding your programming using ESSER funds and ESSER funds only, not a pre-K expansion grant that also might have coupled some ESSER funds with your project, you will need to do the application. So it's really only those who have an approved pre-K expansion grant that don't have to do an application this year.
Yes. Hopefully that's clear. So the where can I find the application? So it is available electronically. What I did was I just popped in here sort of two links. The first one is just our homepage, right? Our maine.gov DOE page. And then the trail to get there is through here. So you would go to Teaching and Learning tab, and then the Early Childhood Education tab, to Public Preschool tab, to Establishing a Program. The quick link that will bring you directly to Establishing a Program is listed here as well. It's just sort of long, and I didn't want folks to think that you had to memorize it or write it down. So I just wanted to offer both ways. But once you get to this page, that's where you'll find some information at the very top around schools that are looking to start new or expand your programs, and the application will be there as well. So we ask that schools have the application complete and submitted by April 30th prior to opening your program. So if you're going to start in September of 2022, then we would expect an application to come through this month. With that in mind, I know that it's very much budget season for SAUs, and budgets often will determine whether or not a school can expand or start your pre-K program. So if it comes to be that April 30th is not late enough, if you need more time to complete the application, just reach out to me. Happy to have a conversation about that and provide more time for you if it's helpful. But otherwise speaking, if you know it's a go and everything's set for it to start, then sometime in April will be great. So why must this be completed? We get asked this a lot because you don't have to do an application for other grades, right? Well, public pre-K is optional. It's optional to be offered to families, and it's optional for students to even attend, right? It's not a compulsory grade here in Maine. So what we like about having folks complete this application is that the form itself serves as a data collection for our team. Without it, we really wouldn't have great information on who's providing what in terms of public pre-K. So it's not so much that it's a make it or break it document, right? If you don't do an application, then you can't open. We want to work with you around that, but what we really want to know is, where is it housed? What are you offering in terms of, oh, I thought maybe I put it there, but I didn't. What are you offering in terms of hours per week, days per week? How many students do you intend to serve? Things like that. And then from there, I can sort of move it into my own data form to really have a better idea of where our programs exist, who's offering what, things like that. And then as you grow over the years, it lets me know when that happens as well. You know, so and so expanded a few years back, they added a partnership or what have you. So it's really truly at the end of the day, a data collection form for us. And through that, once we review applications, if there is anything in there that we see as questionable or misunderstanding or something that we think would be better served in a different way, what have you, then it will sort of flag Marcy and I to reach out and say, hey, I noticed you put this on your application. Have you thought of this or that? Or do you need help initiating this curriculum or accessing this program, whatever it is. So it's a great way for us to get to know districts as well. And how do you complete the application? So like I said, it is a digital form. However, on that early childhood establishing a program page, there is a PDF draft that you can access on your own. So that will just give you sort of a preview of what sorts of things are asked on the application. And please know that that draft PDF has every possible question from the survey listed. Depending on how you respond to those in online, it'll jump you around. So it looks like it's like an 18-page document, when in reality, if you only have one teacher or one address, things like that, then it will hop you around and could potentially be shorter. And for programs that are only expanding, then it's even shorter, because if you're not adding or changing curriculum practices, assessment practices, things like that, then you don't have to constantly re-answer those. But once you are ready to submit the final version, then there's a link right on that page, and it's listed here as well. It's just a Qualtrics form, and I get notified anytime a new one comes in, so I'll know to go in and take a peek at it and see if there's any further outreach needed. So two other things worth mentioning. When schools are interested in expanding or starting new programming for their pre-K community, there is a finance survey that goes out in fall, and this is actually linked on that document I mentioned earlier. It goes out through our DOE newsroom, and that's really for our financial team to sort of get a heads up for funding purposes, right? So if you're going to add a considerable amount of students to your pre-K enrollment, then it's important for our finance team to know that so that they can provide you with an accurate ED 279 in the late fall, early spring. And so that they can budget appropriately as well for the upcoming school year. It used to be that schools had to wait a year or two to get the funding for their pre-K students, but now we can provide it in the same year as long as this finance survey is completed. So that finance survey is really sort of step one in the fall. And then in the application, we're looking for these types of things, your contact information, the location of the program, if you're housing it in an existing school, or if you're leasing or renting a property off-site, if you're doing it with a partnership perhaps and housing it at their location, your staffing, right, assuring that we have an 081 teacher, at least an ed tech 2 or 3 as the assistant, etc. And then really importantly, looking at program structure, so the hours and days per week, partnerships that are in place potentially, a relationship with child development services, those pieces and assurances are all part of the application. It does ask about curriculum screening and assessment practices. Now, it's not uncommon for those to still be unknown in April prior to opening. So we understand if districts right in there, we're still researching options or working with so-and-so around developing this. That's okay. However, that's what I mean by sort of a flag for Marcy and I to say, hey, it looks like you haven't determined a curriculum yet. How can we support you in choosing one that meets Chapter 124's requirements and is evidence-based, high quality, etc. So if it comes to be that you have to leave that blank or undetermined, that's fine, but we'll follow up with you to make sure that you've got what you need to make decisions. And then the community support and enrollment, it asks questions around how you've outreached to your community to make them aware of your intentions for your new or expanded program. It's not so much that we need support letters from them, although many times districts provide that, and it's wonderful. What we want to know is that there's a good faith effort from the SAU to the community providers saying, hey, we serve the same population of students and families. How can we work together? Here's what I can offer as a school. What are you already offering as a private provider potentially? And where can we sort of overlap or have more communication and have more of a relationship to best serve these families? It doesn't mean that you're going to formally partner with them. You don't have to do that. But we do want to make sure that those conversations are happening and that everybody's on the same page and understanding what the intention is. And then, of course, your enrollment, how you intend to find your students and then get them enrolled. And at the very end of the application is your assurances to Chapter 124. So our program standards and just understanding that, around space, indoor and outdoor space, and all of these other pieces, curriculum screening, special education services, things like that. I'm just going to pause for a second and see if that brings up any emotions or questions from folks before I go on. As we move through the rest of the series into the summer, we'll touch base a little bit deeper into some of these pieces as well. So don't worry if you've got a lot of questions now. I think over time we'll help to answer them. Okay, so that was really a quick overview of the application. And then the second topic of today that coordinates with all of this is the Pre-K Guidebook. This was a project that we worked on, right at the start of the pandemic. So throughout 2020 into 2021, it kind of came on as a joke, but I don't mean it like that. We were talking about how similar it is in early childhood programs for teachers, and to support teachers, it's almost like they need a coach, right? And there is actually formal coaching positions in schools. So we're familiar with that. And I jokingly said, yeah, but a coach has a playbook, right? A football coach has a playbook. A basketball coach has a book of plays and a book of how to win the game, so to speak. So we thought that's exactly what we need. We need a playbook for pre-K. So we worked on this public pre-K guidebook. And it is a resource document designed to facilitate the implementation of high quality, publicly funded preschool. It is not a legislative document, right? Strictly a resource. It is meant to assist administrators, teachers, and families. So when you go onto our early childhood page and the public preschool page, you'll see over on the right-hand side this visual here. And if you just click right on the cover of the book here, the apple, it'll bring you to the PDF of the whole document. I'm sure many of you have been there already, but just wanted to reiterate how that exists there. It does cover a variety of topics from standards and program structure, right? How we think you could best implement those two pieces. It discusses some ideas and thoughts around student supports, collaborations and partnerships, if you so choose, pre-K budgets, family engagement strategies, transitions into pre-K and also into K, as well as technical assistance. And there is an appendix with some sample documents in there as well. So none of these are make it break it items. They're strictly resources and just to sort of scratch the surface of each of these pieces. There's lots of ways and through technical assistance and conversations that us on the early learning team can support you in facilitating your high quality programs. So this is just a great way to sort of start and get your mind wrapped around some of these pieces. Last summer, Marcy and I hosted a series of trainings that focused directly on the guidebook. And those are recorded and housed on our childhood resources page. So this is what it looks like when you get there. It was called Unpacking the Pre-K Guidebook. And if you are so inclined, you or your other administrators or teachers in your programs are free to go back and watch any one of these or all of them as you see fit for any of the topics. So those were our basic 2 topics today. And then like I said, I wanted to give time for folks to have any questions or just have an open conversation around the application or the guidebook. So if I went way too fast for talking, I understand if you want me to go back to a slide, just let me know. I also wanted to open really quick that document. So the document that was linked in your original email from registering for the series, I mentioned in the beginning, this is what it will bring you to if you haven't seen it yet. So today's conversation, the resources linked there is straight to chapter 124, our approval standards for pre-K, the finance survey article that I mentioned briefly, and then the application draft, the online application, the guidebook, and the text review. So all of the links that were sent in the chat and we discussed today are available here as well for later. Nobody has a question. Somebody must have a question. Clarification.
I appreciated having all the materials before the meeting. Thank you.
Oh, sure. You're welcome. Yeah, and keep an eye on it. Like I said, it's a live document. So if we think of something that will be helpful for today's session at a later date, I can throw it in there and just flag it somehow so folks know that there was an update to it. I know sometimes it's easier to have it all in one spot rather than fishing around on a website. So I get it.
And Nicole, I think at this point in the presentations in this series, it's fine to ask questions certainly about the content that was focused on for the topic, but it's also an opportunity if you've got another question related to a different topic, this is a perfectly fine time to raise that.
Absolutely. We're doing a good job, Leanne. We've answered all the questions. So as you scroll through here, like I said, we'll add to this next Monday after vacation. We'll talk more specifically around community needs, recruitment, enrollment, and transitions. I mentioned that those are part of the application piece and the guidebook pieces as well. And it will unroll into bigger topics as the summer comes. practicing my wait time, but I don't want to make anybody stay long for a second longer than they want to. This was a quickie.
While people are thinking, Nicole, I'll just mention too, you'll see on the list that on June 13th, we're going to talk about curriculum and assessment choices. And I know that some of you indicated in your approved grants that you plan to utilize Pre-K for Me. And just as a heads up, there should be a newsroom announcement going out this week with a registration for summer training on that program. So if that is something that you are looking to utilize in your Pre-K programs, that will be a great opportunity to take advantage of the training that the department offers on that particular program.
Stop sharing so I can see both. Mark, you good? No questions? Oh, you're chatting. I was putting you on the spot.
Yes, we were just talking about assessment, actually. So, but I don't have any questions. But you did a great job, and I probably don't know enough to ask questions yet.
Well, anytime that come up, always email us. Sorry, Leanne.
No, I was just gonna say, you asked me a great question last week that I'm bringing forward tomorrow morning to one of our standing meetings. So we'll be able to get back to you about the evaluation pieces. And you had also asked about data analysis templates that might be available. So I'm gonna bring that forward and maybe we'll work that into one of the sessions in this series for you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm not going to make folks stay. I know you have a lot on your plate, so I appreciate you coming today. Like I said, you know where to find us. Our emails will always respond. Not next Monday, 2 Mondays, the 25th, we'll have our next session. So I'm not going to make it, but thank you very much.